No, the minister fell very short of expectations. We had several things that we wanted the minister to focus on today. If we look, for example, at growth, we have made proposals on how to grow our economy, especially make it easier for small, medium and micro enterprises, encourage entrepreneurship. There was nothing about that. All we saw today was that government remains fixated on its model to place the state at the center of our economy. So it's a developmental state model, but we have a dysfunctional government. We saw that in the bailouts. There's going to be 30 billion rand in additional bailouts. And that says that the idea of government that the state-owned enterprises can grow our economy is still there. We know it's not able to do that. We know no jobs will come from that. So it's the wrong model that they've chosen. So the minister fell way short of expectation on that. On the issue of debt, government has been saying that it's going to be reducing debt over the next 2 years. We saw completely the opposite. We saw now a transfer somewhere in the region of 126 billion to 260 billion rand will be transferred from Eskom's debt book onto the national balance sheet, which means that we're going to have to pay more interest and it's going to crowd out service delivery, especially to the most vulnerable South Africans. So that made absolutely no sense from what government has been saying in terms of cutting the debt burden. The explanation that you're basically blackmailing the population to say, well, if we don't put the debt onto the national balance sheet, the lights are going to go out. That is complete nonsense. The DA has a very significant and a very well thought out plan to rescue Eskom. For example, inject the private sector into Eskom and remove the moral hazard. Because what happens now is if you bail it out, you give it more money, you transfer the debt over, there is no incentive to be efficient. And that's the big problem. Also, starting up another Eskom isn't going to sort out the problem. So the DA, we know, has got a comprehensive plan, but the minister remains fixated on these large state-owned enterprises that will fail. Also, the most astounding thing today was the minister never mentioned a single word about the cost of living crisis in South Africa and the problems that South Africans are facing putting food onto the table. Not a single word. The DA has proposed the expansion of the zero-rated food basket. The minister said that he would look into that and that he would have a panel appointed if we asked. We've done that. We went to Pretoria the other day to make demands. We haven't heard a single word about that cost of living crisis. We do support the extension of the social relief of distress grant. The DA has proposed a conditional basic income grant of 585 rand a month. So we do support that aspect. But the fact that the minister was completely silent on the crisis facing South Africans, hungry South Africans, is absolutely egregious. We also do support more money for the National Prosecuting Authority. We believe that is a problem. We don't want to have a grey listing next year, although it does look that it's likely to happen. So we do support that, but we know that the key thing is political will. What needs to happen is these transactions need to be identified, they need to be reported, and there needs to be action on them. And we know there's no political will on that. So on a whole, a very disappointing budget that fell well short of our expectations. Obviously, we will have an alternative budget in February and we'll carry on pushing in that direction. But it's a symptom of a broken government that has no clue on how to rescue our broken economy.
If you were to summarize the whole speech, what do you think was the major takeaway for South Africa from this speech?
I think the major takeaway from South Africa is that government doesn't care. Government does not care that there's a crisis in our economy. Government does not care that people are hungry, that people are starving, and that there's a cost of living crisis. Not a single word was said about that. And I think that's the most egregious thing. But I think what's wonderful about this whole thing is that the people know that in 2024 there's going to be an election and they can actually fix this problem. They can actually remove this broken government and get South Africa onto a sustainable economic path. If we continue down this road, we are going to become a dismally failed state, and none of us want that. So the DA is very strong. We've got policies, we've got plans, and we will continue. The next thing we do after this is we start planning for February next year, because the day is going to come when the people are going to remember what the government did to them today. It never even acknowledged the fact that there is a crisis in the cost of living, and that is very egregious.